Good evening.
Good evening, Mikey Mike. 40 Mike, we resent, we are war! F the
We
stigma.
are.
F the stigma.
We have had some technical difficulties tonight, so we thank you guys for sticking in there with us. And we're living the name of the brand. We are resilient, and we'll make it through technical difficulties, personal difficulties, financial hardships, whatever it comes. We'll take it as it goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How's it going?
It's going good. I found myself with two ankle braces because I tore both tendons going down both legs. Uh, they said it was a high ankle sprain, but it was also a tendon tear.
Oh my God, dude.
So I am in ankle braces for 6 to 8 weeks.
Speaking of that, thanks for reminding me. I got to log into my healthy vet. I think I got a message from the VA and didn't check it. So
Now,
I'll
did you
try.
notice that did you have to go on and verify your identity there?
Yeah, it's different now. There's no my healthy vet. It's ID me. Is
Yep, you've got ID Me and you've got VA.gov.
yeah?
Those are
So
the only two now.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Like, okay, guys, you're killing me here.
yep, used to be able to log in with five different options, and now it's just those two, and you have to validate your identity between those two, whether it's a
Right.
virtual call or you send in documents and they get updated by AI. But for if you don't have a state ID, there's no way to verify you. So you can't use your military ID. You can't use a passport anymore. So it's how are folks going to be able to validate themselves if they don't have a state ID?
I don't know, man. I get it and I don't, but it's like they kind of made this. Oh, freak! What did I do to my password? Uh, so I get it, and yes, it does streamline it, but for me, I was used to my healthy vet. You
Yep.
know,
And I used to use the DS login is what I was a big user of because that was the one I could remember and the one I had connected to my CAC when I was in the service, and I just continued to use it once I was out. But now that's not an option.
it's crazy. I mean, I get it, right? You're trying to keep things streamlined. It costs a lot more than people think to keep these password systems going, but it's also like, well, God darn it, if it works, why change it?
Yep. And the biggest thing that I saw was now you got people that can't get in. I had to go on to get a copy of my benefit letter to submit, and of course they wanted the authentication, so I couldn't even get the benefit letter. I had to physically call over to the VA to get them to mail me a copy.
Really?
Yep. So as I'm waiting to get a non-expired ID from the state, uh, that's when I'll be able to authenticate myself on the VA's website again.
Oh, there is a message, and there's a new My Healthy Vet coming June 4th.
Will it be the same VA good.gov?
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
Oof. I thought, after you had talked to that gentleman and you talked about how everything was streamlining into, one app and one, site to be able to get everything, that it would be more user friendly, but it seems to have gone the other way a little bit.
It's really weird, right? When I talked to Chris Johnston, it was really kind of simple but easy, and now it's like, ooh, you know, I don't know. what's going on? But okay, we'll figure. So I got my message. Primary care is on the deal. Nothing serious, just an X-ray. Because if I can, hey, the DA's got me thinking. Hey, if you like keep up with your treatments and health and stuff like that, you're not going to have big problems later. So I'm like, okay, I don't like going, but I will go.
Absolutely. Now, did you PT at West Roxbury,
Brockton,
Brockton?
great crew there. Great crew there. Dr. Geelan and Laura, they're all just fantastic, man. They've just done some amazing work with me, and I just can't say enough about them.
No, I went into the Brockton urgent care when I first had the issue with the ankle. I couldn't put any weight on it.
Yeah,
I went to the urgent care, and having the service dog, they now have a little sticker that they put on the outside of the room that says "Notice service dog in the room," and they don't actually enter the room when they come to tell you things. They just poke their head in and they go, "Hey, just to let you know, you can follow me to go upstairs now," because they don't want to, disturb or interact between you and the dog,
right, right, right.
which I thought was pretty neat to see that that they have something to mark that it's there. Because I know there's times where Jose, where he's just so quiet, he's laying down next to me that people don't even actually realize he's there until they come around the other side of me to when they're doing the assessment.
Well, it's really good, man. And there's so many times where I get really upset when people just sit there and punch bag the VA, and I'm like, well, you're okay. You haven't been going to your appointments. You show up there with a bad attitude. You show up late. You didn't do what the doctor told you to, and then now you're like all upset. And yes, mistakes get made, but I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you think civilian medical care is mistake free, you're more liable to die in a hospital than anywhere else in this country.
So my last experience at up in Salem at the ER, went in there, and I don't know if it was a full moon or what, but like the place was bumping, and it must have been 6 to 7 hours from the time going into the ER to being put in a room that wasn't an actual room for patients. It was like an overflow room where they just had some chairs where you could sit on, and then from there you went to a bed eventually if you rated but there was just maybe 3 or 4 doctors. And you don't know if they were interns or real doctors. If they just come in, see you, motion, see you later.
Yeah, yeah,
Follow up with primary care. Good luck.
right, right. It's crazy. It's just crazy, man. I don't know what to say. Um, it's just I don't know. I don't know.
And they're still talking about reducing the staff at the VA, and the secretary put out that he's looking at 15% cuts. But
So I
then
wanted to ask you about that because I've been told two things. I've been told that hey, this is just Doge getting too far, and the VA secretary and President Trump said VA services weren't going to get cut. But I've also understood that hey, now that the PACT Act onboarding is over, and most of the PACT Act patients have been assessed, that it's just like a drawdown when you don't need as many people. And so I'm like, well, there's got to be a little bit of truth and lie in there somewhere, because I'm not hearing where veterans aren't getting taken care of, but there are certain things that tell you that there's less people there.
absolutely, and like the biggest thing that I think you saw change was they're pulling everybody back into the office, and like I understand why they want to do that because you have these spaces and you want to make sure they're being utilized, and you're paying money to do it, so why not have patients do it? But I feel like more people were being seen, and appointments were going better when you could do a virtual visit with a provider, whether it be mental health or a provider that doesn't have to get hands on.
I have told people that telehealth was the greatest thing. And to your point, because a veteran didn't have to take time off work, or, if maybe they couldn't work, but sit there. And I'm like, look, man, people think that the VA care, we're very fortunate where we are, right? Because you got Brockton, Providence, West Rocks, and Jamaica Plain. But I said, you go to some of these states like, Florida, or, even Nebraska, man, you might have to drive a good hour or 2 hours to go to a clinic, much less a full-fledged service center. So to be able to do care via telehealth was like a huge deal. It worked. So I'm not sure why we're trying to cut it now that, I don't know. It worries me.
And then the other thing is they're showing that they want to increase the VA's budget by 4%. So they're doing the drawdown of 15%, but then they want to increase the budget of 4%. What is that going to go to?
Right, right, right.
So it's like that's another tough thing to see and to look at. And then you got the stuff that's happening on the side that you know shouldn't be taking headlines and shouldn't be even discussed, like the trying to change Veterans Day to Victory Day and things like that. But those things wind up you know taking the headlines because they're things that get people going on social media.
Right, right. And so are you not, while we're here, are you not for the name change, or are you for the name change?
I am not for the name change,
Okay.
and luckily the pushback was enough that they're going to keep Veterans Day as Veterans Day. They did declare that May 8th is Victory World War I Day, and that's absolutely acceptable, and I appreciate a day when people can learn about the history, because we don't have any World War I veterans left to share their stories. So if we
Right.
have a day that can remind us of what the doughboys did, and share the stories, that's wonderful. But I don't think that a day that has you know evolved from Armistice Day to know what Veterans Day is today and what it covers, and how it's gone from a day that's was very small celebrated to see all the celebrations that you have in small towns and cities, and the way that people do things for it. I don't want to see that lost.
So I was for it. I'm one of the minority. I liked the increase. I like the increase focus on um, World War One.
Hmm.
And like we were chatting about, like I went to the World War I monument in Washington D.C., and it's kind of tucked away and forgotten. It's kind of tucked away and forgotten, and I remember it as it was the war to end all wars, and it was. You read some books about it, and you think about what those guys went through. It, you wouldn't even dream about fighting a war like that now, right? And throwing that many people into the churn of combat. So I liked it, and because to me, Veterans Day was actually Remembrance Day, which came from Armistice Day, which is all from World War One. And educate me here. I'm not sure what May 8th and World War One have in common, because everything was done in November for a reason.
Yep. So I will pull up the what it said today. Let me go to whitehouse.gov real quick. Uh, May 8th proclamation. Today, our nation proudly commemorates the 80th anniversary of the Allied powers' triumph over National Socialism and Fascism and the end of World War II in Europe. So, VE Day.
Okay.
One of the most epic victories for forces of freedom in the history of the world. On this Victory Day for World War II, we celebrate the unmatched might, strength, and power of American armed forces, and we commit to protecting our sacred birthright of liberty against all threats, foreign and domestic. In the wake of 7 December 1941, Pearl Harbor, United States entered the fray. It will become the apex of a eternal battle between good and evil. 4 years, more than 250,000 Americans lost. Today and every day, we pay tribute to those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Without their sacrifice of our American soldiers, this war would not have been won, and our world would look drastically different. May 8th, 1945 marks the Allies' acceptance of Germany's unconditional surrender, the beginning of the end of years of long, gruesome, and brutal warfare.
Dude, there's a book called "I Deep in Hell" about World War I that I am like, man. I mean, trench warfare was just horrific. It was hell on earth, literally. What they talked about and
Yeah,
how the soldiers lived, and you know, 5,000 lives for 10 feet of real estate, and then to lose it all 2 weeks later because the generals were just kind of stuck in their ways. It was just unbelievable to read about.
good
So
evening, Jeremy Daniels.
so it's this month, Mikey. It's Memorial Day. I think it's kind of like a month. I don't know about you, but once we get into this week here, all of a sudden the Memorial Day playing activities really kick into high gear, and it just gets going until pretty much Fourth of July. It seems like now. I didn't know if you had the same kind of thing going on.
It does, and you got Mother's Day this weekend as well. So make sure
Happy Mother's Day.
I'll take care of the moms out there. We wouldn't be the messes that we are without our moms taking care of us.
For sure, man, for sure.
And then it does. It's like it literally warps right from that right to Memorial Day, and that's another thing that people you know when somebody walks up to you on Memorial Day and thanks you for your service, and it's like you want to be like Memorial Day for those that didn't come back, Veterans Day for those that are here.
It's hard. It's hard, right? And it's very uncomfortable, and I get it. And I kind of I'm like, okay, at least they acknowledged it, right? Because I still go back to the Vietnam War where it wasn't acknowledged.
Hmm.
Even when we were in the military, right? It wasn't really a huge thing until after 9/11. And now some people at least try to. So I applaud the effort and just take it as a quick minute to say, hey, that's cool. Memorial Days for those who are lost to us. Veterans Day is a day you can thank me for. And
Yeah.
if you do it, if you're cool about it, it's a learning moment, and you can kind of go from there. But some people get freaked out about it on both sides, man. I've seen veterans really lose their stuff over it, and understandable, man. If you lost buddies and you know the global war and terror, situation, maybe you're not in a good place.
And it's like the biggest thing is like some towns like how they do the celebrations for it. Like it's almost as if the town doesn't understand it either. And it's like you look at these veteran service officers and you're wondering what they're doing. You know they shouldn't just be sitting in their office doing claims or collecting a paycheck. They should be advising the town on on these holidays and on these different events. You know.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, there's no easy way to say it. Where I live, they'll come out for St. Patrick's Day parades, but man, the Veterans Day parade is sparsely attended. And that's the truth. That is the truth. Now we have a very nice Memorial Day ceremony in Abington. It's very beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, small and intimate. It's just very, very nice, right? But I don't know, man. I don't know. I know we have a lot of VSOs, and I know there's good ones and bad ones. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. And it's tough because, like, you know, now that there's the office of the VSO, I feel like there's more oversight and there's more direction for them versus, before where there was just kind of, the towns just do their thing as they wish.
That's a very interesting office, man. If I understand it correctly, is it watches all veterans entities here in mass, and if you have a if you have a complaint and you go to them, it's not going to be shoved underneath the rug. They have to, per their charter or whatever you want to call it, investigate and either guide you to the right spot or take action on your behalf. Now they can't file claims for you. They can't, get you a VA rating increase. But if someone didn't do what they were supposed to do for you on the veteran side of things, with the state or local level or even federal level, they're a place to get recourse. Absolutely.
And then, the other big thing, that I see that's coming up is we've been doing these coffee and camaraderie events over at the VFW in North Attleboro.
Yeah.
And, each month, you get a couple more people that come through. Uh, Bedard Realty, now is our official sponsor and does, they take care of the coffee and donuts for us. And, it's really good to see, we get returning people that, a couple of guys bring their kids and the kids, will play video games while their dads are able to, have a coffee and talk. And like, it's just good to, to see the growth of you know, the community getting together, whether it be, the sons, playing together, or there was a grandmother and grandfather that were there, having a coffee and sharing donuts, and like just seeing all the different ways that it's grown, and people are getting together for this. It's really been cool to see.
Well, I mean, reading some of the American Legion stats and the VFW stats, they're kind of freaking out because they don't know what to do. But I think you're right, man. It's just as simple as, hey, you know what? We got a couple of TVs, we got a couple of Xboxes. Um, the kids can come and play Madden. The kids can come and play COD. We're gonna sit there in a group and just have some coffee and donuts and just pump the brakes on life for an hour and a half. Maybe it's just as simple as that instead of these super complicated programs that are really intricate and with forms and surveys. I don't know, but what I'm trying to say, Mike, maybe it's the simple things that are going to draw the community together instead of these big elaborate plans. I don't know.
Absolutely, and like one of the things that I've seen is Regiment Gaming. They're building a gaming center in a VFW down in Texas to see how it will do as a draw for that post. And if that does well, then they'll look at putting a gaming section in more posts. And if that's what it's going to take to get guys in there, then it's adapting to the times. It's you had the years where going hard and heavy at the canteen was the thing, and your your drinking and driving laws changed. Your social norms changed, and people just weren't looking to be in a basement full of smoke anymore. And as that changed, I think these posts were slow to change, but I see a lot of them finally making that change, and getting younger guys into these chairs is helping that.
Well, I mean, I just go back to my experience, and I walked in there, dark room, and I didn't look like them. I don't like it, I don't like anything, but I didn't look like them for certain. I was considered a young whippersnapper, and they made it clear I wasn't welcome. I'm like, you know what? F this. I am not trying to beat my head to get accepted by a guy who doesn't even think that, you know, I'm for real. It took a while to get over that. I'm not saying I'm proud of my choice to stay away, but, you know, I didn't have any motivation to go there. And now it's like, well, you know, I we're going to need these things. The fact of the matter is, the Vietnam era veterans are dying out at a faster rate than the World War II veterans. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, hey, Mike, it's going to be like the guys like you and me who are going to pick up the torch and try to get it ready. And I'm like, I asked guys, like, why don't you got the space? I said, you could probably go to Walmart or Target and get some 40-inch TVs for and have 5 or 6 of them and have Madden tournaments and Halo tournaments, and you'd probably have people fucking it. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Or even Mario Kart, right? I mean, I'd be down for
Yep.
some Mario and have a lot of fun doing it. Ah, well then, what are you gonna do?
Yep. And that's the big thing is like, the TVs are so cheap nowadays too, and like that's one of the things that for the like the Special Plini Foundation for the motorcycle run this August. This is going to be the final year for it, so we're going to try to make it as big as possible. And I've got a 120-inch screen and a projector that we're going to use to do video games on.
That's gonna be awesome, dude. That's gonna be awesome.
So
You know, I'm thinking things like, you know, video games, a trivia night, you know, stuff like that. That, you know, okay, it's trivia night, but you know what? Trivia is something that you could have your wife and a couple of your friends from the neighborhood come to, and they might not be veterans, but they're there at the Legion, you know, buying drinks, buying some food, and having, you know, trivia. You know, I'm just saying. And I'm like, we need ideas, but we need the younger people in there. And you know, I started going again, Mike, and it was a little hit or miss at first, but I'm really liking it. There's some good people there.
and like a trivia night, like with ChatGPT now, you could literally say, "Hey, ChatGPT, draft me up, a 3 rounds of simple trivia based on 2025 pop culture," and it'll draft everything up for you. It'll write the rounds. It'll ask the questions. You could have the score sheets printed out, and you know, all you got to do is drop them on the table and get an MC. So it's like the only thing holding people back is their own initiative.
Yeah, that's it. That's really it. That's really it. I mean, it's so cheap now. Um, it's not that, and even if it's some TVs and Xboxes, it's not that hard to just set them up to play. I mean, you don't have, yeah, having them on the internet is cool, but you can still just to play some Madden or some NCAA or some baseball games. It's not that hard, man.
Absolutely, and like I see more guys playing retro games than playing new games lately too. Is you see guys going back and doing a speed run through a round, or going back and playing games that you played 20 years ago to see if you can actually beat the game nowadays. And like these retro handhelds that have 40,000 games on them, and it's like there's just so much out there that like all you got to do is tap into it, and it's a resource that will do good for you.
Dude,
Speaking
I
about
would I
resources,
would love to see a remake of GoldenEye, man.
speaking on resources, what does Oscar Mike Radio have for us this evening?
So Oscar Mike Radio is covering a Navy SEAL, Thomas LaGrave, and his story, and his book is uh, special welfare, social warfare, and he got kicked out of the SEALs for addiction to alcohol and marijuana back in the 80s, right before they really started cracking down on it. And I say that because, you know, I don't know about you, man, I got told stories when I was in the Marine Corps. There were Marines at one time growing pot in their barracks, and as long as they were cool about it, no one really cared. It was some, and then I think it was Reagan or Bush one who to like we're just not doing that anymore. but he had a really obvious problem with substance abuse, and then started getting into different things and became a licensed social worker and an author. And he has this concept for this youth camp to really, you know, engage with the youth of America. And it's interesting. It's not my normal guest, but I really resonated with Thomas. It was like, yeah, I was a Navy SEAL that messed up. I wasn't perfect, and I had to mess up and be really on the on the in the dumps before I was able to rebuild myself. So I really enjoyed talking with him. It's a very interesting book, and I just think that he has a great idea. We need America's youth now more than ever.
Absolutely. And the social work, it takes a solid heart to be able to take the issues and you know the needs and concerns of somebody else, put them on your shoulders and carry them through.
I don't think people realize that, man. You're absolutely right. It's a special set of skills and training to be able to do that and day in and day out. I don't know how they do it. And so, and again, I thought he was just a really interesting character, really authentic about his life story. And hey, I and took ownership. I did these things. I could have done so much more, but here's what I was able to do as a result. So I really liked his sincerity.
Yep. All right, so that's over on Oscar Mike Radio at all podcast locations. YouTube, if you want to join in the comments, Facebook Live. Uh, all those avenues will be available at 8 p.m.
Yep. So we're going to sign off now because I got to get ready for the live cast. But it's really great going into Memorial Day. We'll keep it going up and some really cool things coming. So thank you all for watching.
Absolutely. Happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there.